I think you're especially given a lot of credit for figuring out what cable and satellite companies were willing to pay for ESPN. Could you take us through kind of that moment where you realized, wow, this is, NBC doesn't have must-see television, ESPN does, and they, people are saying, I have to have this.
Well, about 16 months after I started in the mailroom, I was transferred to our sales office in Arlington, Texas. And I had, my territory was Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, Louisiana, and Mississippi. And I drove through every one of those states, calling on every mom and pop cable operator in those states. Tried to make 3 calls a day, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And it was a wonderful experience. And the meetings would go something like this. Hi, I'm George Bodenheimer. I'm here from this new network, ESPN. We're 24 hours a day, and we would like you to carry ESPN on your cable system. And the reaction was always something like, that's really kind of a crazy idea, but if you'll give it to me or not charge me much money, I'll put it on, because they didn't have hundreds of channels like they do now. I don't think it's going to work, but I will tell you that this town, and this, I heard this hundreds of times, this town is a sports town. And I learned quickly that every town in America considers themselves a sports town. By the way, think of Tuscaloosa. Think of popularity of sports here in this town. So you know what I'm saying is true. So quickly, we were able to, I say quickly, 2, 3, 4 years, we were able to get the network distributed. And then as cable grew, we were able to grow with it. And but sports, you think sports have always been popular, and it costs us significant sums of money to acquire the rights for the games that we televise. So we've got to, in turn, charge a fee to the distributors to have a business. So early on, when the Lifetimes and the MTVs and the food channels and the travel channels and even CNN, the early networks in the early 80s, their cost structure was nothing like someone programming and producing live sports. So we in effect had to begin charging more just to have a business. I mean, there was years there where it wasn't known if ESPN was going to have a business at all. I mean, I remember when we used to get our paychecks, half the company would run down the road and deposit their checks. Yes, there was no automatic check deposits in those days. I know it's sounding really ancient, but we would run down to the bank and deposit our checks. So we didn't know if the company was going to make it. So, I mean, those are some of the roots of how we got started. But without that business model, we wouldn't exist. And, live sports today are arguably the most powerful and popular genre out there. I mean, when your team kicks off at 3:30 on Saturday, you want to see it live. You don't want to tape it and watch it Tuesday night when you get home from work. I mean, so sports have this primacy of live. People want to watch them live, and they command a high value.
And just to clarify, every other town that thinks they're a sports town, we are. Sports town. But yeah, reading the book from James Andrew Miller and Tom Shales, I'd be curious just overall impressions of how thorough that book is. But especially when you get to 98, I think the reading is some people were surprised at your selection initially and then immediately saw it as a very logical choice, was what I was getting out of that. Did you feel like you were being groomed for that president position, or did it come to you by surprise?
Well, I had known for a few years, I think it was 1995, that I had been given all sales and marketing to run. So I felt as though my boss was obviously trying to expand my responsibility and giving me areas that I had no experience in, like advertising, sales, and marketing to run. So I had an idea that a few years earlier maybe I could have a chance at running the company, but only a few years before it actually occurred.
Okay. Well, talking to the people I know at ESPN now, you may have detractors, but I haven't met them. For the most part, everyone sees you as very clear-headed, and the quote that came to mind was from Harry Truman, where it was, it's amazing what you can accomplish if you don't care who takes the credit. And that seemed to be the way people were responding to your mode of leadership. Is that an appropriate characterization?
Yes, I think so. I think the culture of ESPN that we've established in 33 years is really what our competitive advantage is. We take risks. We work extremely hard. I've never seen a harder working group of people in my life than the 7,000 employees of ESPN. Every day, every weekend, every holiday, when you're home enjoying sports, our people are working. And we focus on mutual respect of other people. I learned that from my parents. So I think all of those things are embedded in the ESPN company, and including that, I'm never worried about who gets the credit. And I try to tell people all the time, it's obvious who the real drivers are. Cream rises to the top. Just, do your job, celebrate victories as a team. We don't try to promote individual stars at ESPN. We prefer to focus on the company overall as a team. One of the things we did a few years ago, maybe 5 or 7 years ago, is we stopped talking so much about developing managers, and we talked about developing leaders. And it turned out to be a really popular concept within our employee base, because I'll say most people would like to think of themselves as leaders or aspire to be leaders. And it's, we had to try to figure out how to articulate that to our employees. Well, what does that mean? And how can I be a leader if I'm not a department head or a vice president or have some grand title with a lot of people reporting to me? And I'm like, no. And I think this goes back to my mailroom roots. Everybody in this company or organization or team can contribute and can be a leader, because our definition of leadership is going to be very simple. Leaders make other people better. And if you do that at the ESPN company, we consider you a leader. And that can manifest itself in many ways. Help people that don't understand a concept. Share information before meetings. The worst thing that I hate is when I'm in a meeting and someone's got a piece of paper with some very valuable information on it, and they're the only ones that have it. They didn't share it with anybody, and they think it's a big deal at the moment because they're the only ones that have this. If you had shared it with the group and had everybody thinking about it before the meeting, just think about what potentially could be accomplished in that manner. To me, that's leadership and that's power, not holding something into yourself, and I'm the only one that happens to have this. So that's turned out to be a very valuable kind of driver in our company. And we talk about people being leaders regardless of what position they're in, regardless of whether anybody reports to them. And I think it's been a very big factor contributing to the culture that we have at the company.
Absolutely. Now, your tenure as president saw a number of developments. Some things that come to mind are everything from Sports Century to some of these talk shows that we have, like Pardon the Interruption and Around the Horn, the 30 for 30 film series. Is there anything that really stands out to you as something that you're proud to have that ESPN brand attached to?
Well, I'm proud of the whole company. I'm proud of our people. I'm proud of the amount they give back to the charities. I'm proud of our company. I wouldn't single out any one of the programs you mentioned, but those are all wonderful programs. The Sports Century project alone, way back in ancient history when we were turning into the year 2000, and it was such an epic event in the United States, it was a big deal. I don't know, we put $30 or $40 million behind that project, if I remember correctly. It was a huge gamble, and no one was quite sure if it was going to pay off and how that worked. But we said, well, as this country goes into the year 2000, we want to chronicle the best moments in sports in the last century, and it turned out to be a huge winner. But at the time, it was kind of a white knuckle investment.
What was that the biggest risk that you really faced, maybe from a financial standpoint, or especially, I mean, Mark Shapiro was put on Sports Century at a relatively young age.
He was, and Mark distinguished himself with that project, and then went on to run all of our content for a number of years. So it became a springboard for his career. Did such an amazing job putting that together. But the creative process isn't easy. It's messy. It isn't always clear what to do. Things take time. We were talking earlier, I don't believe in too many overnight successes. Every time you think something's an overnight success and you peel back the covers, you find someone's been working hard for 6 to 8 to 10 years to make something happen. And I believe that happens more often than not. All of those programs you mentioned took years to develop and become successful.
Consistently, I've seen in the media over time that especially the past couple of years, I've seen articles about, has ESPN gotten too big and too powerful? What's your response?
No.
Would you care to elaborate?
I don't think so. I mean, we're a commercial business. We're really focused on our mission, which is to serve sports fans. 30 years ago, we could do that with one television channel. Now we've got multiple television channels, but half of you are holding smartphones. If you're representative of the U.S. at large, you probably emphasis or deliver on smartphones. You have tablets. You want to watch the game, or in our case, the game, when you want to watch it on whatever device you want to watch it. So for us, really, it's just following the mission of the company to serve sports fans anytime, anywhere. We don't tell the fans what to watch, when to watch. We take their feedback and we want to supply it to you, the sports fan, wherever and whenever you watch it. So if following that mission has enabled us to grow to a large company, then I consider that a great American success story, business success story. I certainly don't consider it too big. I mean, we're actually relatively small in the context of many other corporations in America.
Sure.
It's mostly our competitors that say we're too big.
Yeah, well, we were talking about that too. You have different main competitors in every market. You've got different main competitors in television, then you have in print, then you have in radio, or whatever it is. So is it the matter that the brand is simply very ubiquitous?
Well, I've been walking around your university all morning, and I went to lunch in town. I think I've seen it on every single TV everywhere I've been. So I don't know if it's ubiquitous or somehow they knew I was coming. But
they got the memo. Yeah.
But I mean, that's what we strive to do. We want to be there for the fans and deliver that product. There's sports news, every hour of the day.